This week's episode of Area 66 Declassified features two guest presenters, J.P. Hale from Taylor, Texas, and Clay Reisler from Pulaski Community Schools in Wisconsin. J.P. will discuss the SAMR model for technology integration in schools, and Clay will introduce If This Then That, a website that lets you create recipes to automate your digital life. First up, the SAMR model.
Today I'm going to introduce you to a model called the SAMR model, and we're going to compare it to coffee. The SAMR model is a four-tiered approach to educational technology integration. The letter S, which stands for substitution, is where a classroom product is merely substituted in technology with what you could have done with pen and paper. An example would be using a word processor to type a story instead of handwriting it. A stands for augmentation, where you add some type of technology that adds value to the assignment. Examples would include using spell checker, grammar checker, or electronic dictionary added to the typed report. M is for modification, where a significant amount of the work has to be done using technology. Instead of handwriting stories, students are creating a story using digital pictures and some kind of template. And then finally R, redefinition, transforms the assignment. Instead of a handwritten story, students create a presentation that they write, record, and distribute. Now, redefinition is basically an activity that you wouldn't otherwise be able to do without the technology. Now, how does that relate to Starbucks? Let me see if I can explain this a little bit more in detail. Let's say you have a cup of coffee that you make at home as the original non-digital assignment. Starbucks, for our purposes, represents educational technology. So for the S of the SAMR model, you simply go to Starbucks and order a cup of coffee. You have substituted the cup of coffee at home for a cup of coffee at Starbucks. Nothing changes. Cup of coffee for a cup of coffee. Now, augmentation. Suppose instead of a simple cup of coffee, you want Starbucks to do something to it. Maybe add cream, some ice to the coffee. It's still basically a cup of coffee, but now it's augmented. We have taken that basic cup of coffee and just added some things to it. Ice, cream, maybe some sugar, and a straw, but we still basically have a cup of coffee. Now we want Starbucks to modify our coffee. We want them to do something to the coffee that we probably could do, but it would be much more difficult than just a cup of coffee. So we order an iced caramel macchiato, which we could make at home if we really tried, but it's probably a lot easier for Starbucks to make it. They have modified the original coffee with their own flavors and syrups. They added whipped cream as well. Truly a modified coffee. Now finally, we want to get a drink that can only be purchased at Starbucks. They will totally redefine the coffee into a pumpkin spice latte. Only Starbucks makes it that way. They even have a trademark on the recipe. So that is how you can think about the SAMR model of technology integration, from simple cup of coffee to a Starbucks pumpkin spiced latte. So the next time you're using technology in your classroom, think to yourself, am I substituting this technology for something I could do offline, or am I redefining the task or redesigning the task, allowing students to do things that they'd never be able to do before?
In order to utilize a service called If Then That, I am going to help organize myself. When I find a favorite on Twitter, a great resource, I'm going to immediately send it to my Evernote so that I can have everything in one specific area. So this works such as this. You want to create recipes, which are basically triggers, then an action. So for the one that I set up, if I favorite a tweet on Twitter, like a great resource, then that tweet will be sent to my Evernote. So I'm going to quickly show you how to do this. You need to create a recipe, and what happens is that the first one, you can see the only thing that you can click on is the blue part. So if this happens, and this is where you can go get a bunch of different options. So the one that I got was my Twitter account. But let's say if I favorite a YouTube, or if I see a Vimeo video that I like, or let's say I come across a blog post that I like. So really you have to create specific things that if you see something that happens, and I'm just going to say Twitter, if any of these things happen on Twitter, and I chose to just do the favorites, but I could do a tweet by me, I could do a tweet, you can see all the different options there. But if this happens, then I wanted to trigger something. So I click trigger. Now it gives me options. And these are where I can put it in wherever I want. Maybe you could send yourself an email. Maybe you could create yourself a Dropbox document. There's really all of these different things that you could do. But I chose Evernote. And what do I want it to do? I wanted to create a new note. I wanted to append a new note that I already have, create a link note. It's whatever you want. So if I create a note, then it asks me to not fill in any of these things. It's just telling you what is actually going to happen. So it's going to send your username, that's from your Twitter account, and it's going to create it into a notebook. You could create a specific notebook for this. I left it as this notebook, because then I'll know that all the favorites go into that particular notebook, and then I also tagged it. You would then create action, and that will be set up. Now I'm not going to do that because I already have, but that's kind of where it all goes from there. So the one thing that I want you to look at is that these recipes that happen are checked every 15 minutes. So this isn't going to be an instant thing. So as soon as you click a favorite tweet, it's not going to automatically show up in your Evernote. It waits every 15 minutes. But hopefully that's an idea of just exactly what you can do with this. If you do something, it can do an action for you to help you be more organized.